I heal myself. When you've done this to me, I'm not that strong. By so doing, they believed, or at least hoped, that they could get rid of the post-slavery problem by getting rid of people of color whom they had no further use. Slavery was over. They had built their empires, their privilege, their power, which they were going to pass on to their children. The battle was over. All they had to do was count their pennies and pile up more. Just like the crooks today in Enron, and on and on and on it goes. Millions wasn't enough for them. They had to steal more from us. And they may stay 4 years in jail, but they're going to be rich and they're going to pass it on to their children. As a personal example, when I finished my first master's degree at Westminster College, I had my credentials to teach school. I went to my supervisor and he said, "John, you've done a very good job. Your grades are wonderful, blah, 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 but you can't teach around here." He said, "You have to go to Philadelphia, because blacks can't teach in the Pittsburgh area and Philadelphia and around here, Newcastle and all that." I said, "I'm not going to Philadelphia. I don't know anyone in Philadelphia. I'm not going there and look for a place to live to get my practice teaching done." I said, "I'll teach here." He said, "Well, good luck." I went to the church where I was going, because I was living with my first lover, Wilbur Chambers then. I was going to the Presbyterian Church in Mount Jackson, and I was directing their youth group. I sang at weddings and funerals and whatnot, and I was well known. I was the black in the community, was refined and accepted. But they didn't say that. So I went to the superintendent. I went to Professor McCullough, who was a member of the church, and I said, "Professor McCullough, I finished my credentials at the university. I need to teach at the school here. Can I come?" He said, "John, when you're ready to come, you come." And so I went back and I told Professor Workenhorst, I said, "Oh, I'm going to teach at Mount Jackson." And he said, "Oh, John, that's wonderful. I'm so grateful. I'm so pleased that you got that." That was nice of him to say, but he didn't step out to help me get anything. He simply resigned himself to the fact that I had to go where blacks went. And so I went. And I was good, but the funny thing is, every time I looked, people were going by looking, they had the glass door and the wood in the bottom, they were looking. I was a curiosity. A black man with the audacity and the intelligence to teach in a white school. I heard a bishop in the Episcopal Church said when he got his credentials, they couldn't place him in a pastorate. And he went through the church schools. But when he finished, they couldn't place him in a pastor because a black pastor couldn't be over white parishioners, although were they going to the same heaven. So, everybody was told. Now, step 3. Follow where I'm going. My grandfather was born in 1880. 17 years after the emancipation. I don't really know how he and his 6 children managed to live through that dreadful period. But as I recall, they did have a small grocery store where I assume they made enough to survive. I don't know anything about my great-great-grandfather. He was a slave. Now I want to ask you. I'm not going to ask anybody over here because I know they don't know. If you know your great-great-great-grandfather and where he came from, I want you to stand. We must have whites over here from the Briar Patch. Tell me, you know yours.
Well, the first ones arrived by the 1640 census in Virginia, and they moved to Alabama. They were Quakers driven out, and then and the first ones by the 1810 census in Richmond were pro-black in terms of teaching a black school, which was against the law. Their grandson became a major defendant of segregation and was arrested as a private in the Civil War, and in a prison camp staffed by black soldiers from New York.
Thank you.
My father's...
You may be seated.
My father's father, another Quaker line, they were Quakers that came up from North Carolina into Ohio once it was opened up. Those were gone. My mother's father, his people came through Oakland. Before that, it was Seattle. They opened up Seattle and they took the logs there. Those people came from Maine. So that's that line. My mother's mother.
He has 2 lines, baby.
I got
How many lines you all got?
You want me to give
Go ahead. I want the other line.
I'm owning class. I know my thing.
Yeah, I know.
My mother's line. All I know is that they were Douglases, and Douglas County, New York, it's named after us because it was given to us by the King. Those people. My father's mother's line. My father's mother was born in Brooklyn. They came from upstate New York. The previous generation was in Ontario because they were loyalists who went up there after being on the wrong side of the revolution.
Thank you. Now, you want a definition of privilege? Yeah. He just went sketchily. You know, he sketchily told it. Next.
Okay. Well, I can only talk about my mother's line.
Okay.
But I will comment about my father's line in a second. My mother's patriarchal line came from Switzerland. They left Switzerland in 1815. I know the name of the boat. I know they came to Philadelphia in 1816. I know they then went from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, where they then bought property that is still in my family.
You're kidding.
No.
Go ahead, Joe.
And my mother even had the privilege, and I'll use that word deliberately, of being able to hire a genealogist who then traced that family from Switzerland back to the 1400s. So that I actually have the name of my descendants back to the 1400s, that line. And what I want to say about my father's line is, even though I don't know the line, I know that if I had the inclination to research it, I could find that answer.
Thank you. Now, I didn't mean to slight you all. Oh, not, he's taking, he's taking the pictures. But if you want to go back and say, go ahead. Because his name is no. So, there's probably something there. You better.
I hate to disappoint you, that's my adopted name.
Oh.
I only know my mother's side. I think my you said great-great-grandfather?
Yeah.
He was a farmer in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, and he's buried there in the same cemetery of Willa Cather. And I think they settled in Vermont and New Hampshire from Massachusetts Bay Colony in the 17th century. And the other side, on my mother's side, was from Pennsylvania. They were Pennsylvania Dutch. They moved to Iowa in the 1860s and on to Illinois and shortly after 1900.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, it's time for the question. What have I done to build my case? Who wants to clearly say to me, I've gone back to slavery. What have I done to build my case? My case being that something is owed. There is a difference in opportunity And it has been instituted from the 17th century. You got ahead of the race, yes.
The past determines the present.
Very good point. More.
But not all whites had those opportunities. They came to in servitude or...
Honey, wait, stop, just stop right there. I don't give a damn about them. I don't give a shit if they came on a boat. They're white and they got ahead of you, so don't you go defending them. Fuck. I ain't listening to that. No, I ain't going there. See, blacks always have to be so forgiving. They're ready to apologize. You'll hear white people apologizing. Don't do that. Next.
You inherit poverty as well.
Yes, next.
By not allowing this side of the room to raise the possibility that we might know, it disenfranchises and it continues a conversation that isn't fair or useful.
Thank you. But if anybody in here knows their great-great-great-grandfather...
Not everybody over there that stood up talking about
If I want one person over here who knows...
How many greats are we going back?
As far as I went back, we're going back to slavery. We're going back to slavery, and if you know the great, then you should be able to tell about the documents.
Mr. Bush, thanks for giving me that opportunity to spend my last 3 years doing that kind of research. Thanks to the institution of slavery and racism in America, I had to go to the census records to find out who my ancestors were.
Go ahead. Just
Many of which I had never heard of until I saw them on the census records. And I had to clarify many of those records because in many cases the census takers were as uneducated as the people they were enumerating. I do know my great-great-great-grandmother, Millie Woltz, that's W-O-L-T-Z, who was able to lead the plantation forum in Mecklenburg County, Virginia, or Meriwether County, Georgia, sometime between 1870 and 1880. Her youngest daughter, who was written as M.U. in the racial column, which means she was mulatto, but there was no father listed, was my great-grandmother, Mary C. Woltz, who was the wife of my great-grandfather, Green Stinson of Meriwether County, Georgia, the city of Durand, which used to be Stinson, Georgia. Green Stinson claims to one of his grandsons that his grandfather was the plantation owner, in which case that line can be followed back through Phoebe Stinson and her daughter Fanny Stinson. Fortunately, I have a cousin once removed in Cleveland, Ohio, who helped initiate this research and has actually written a family history book. We are related maternally. But I could only really follow my mother's side of the family because even when their memory was erratic, they did keep records.
thank you. That's very good. Now there might is someone else over here.
Well done, we started the same research in my family. We go back to Virginia and my father's line does and my mother's line does as well. But we just in the beginning and again, the same thing with Jim found the census data. Because we were cattle at that point, we could think and move property and we were owned. They went back and they enumerated and then they kept the track on it. So
if black people want to find their ancestors, they have to check tax records because they were property.
yeah.
And that was the one that you think that property.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go ahead now. I'm going to go ahead. And thank you for calling to my attention that I know the genealogy work has started since the Civil Rights Movement, because my sister has gone all the way back into slavery on my mother's side, and it's just really fascinating. And to my father's side, we're back to the 1880 that I talked about. I'm supposed to be doing that, I just haven't had time to do it. I'm going to go. I thought about my slave answers when I stood in the dungeon of a slave castle in Ghana. The group was having a service to honor the slaves who had been held there before they were sent through the door of no return. I don't know if you know what that is, but I guess some of you do. Okay, I won't explain. I could not remain in that service. I had to leave. I began to get short of breath, and I felt overwhelmed with grief. And I quickly exited and found my way out into the warm night air on the Ghana coast, where I cried for my unknown loved ones who had suffered in a place like that one, and were then sent to the New World to become the property of slave owners. I was amazed and saddened when I heard Adelia Scruggs at the Trinity Episcopal Church in Cleveland, when she presented a document, the last will and testament of Edward Scruggs, where he listed the belongings he was leaving to his heirs. Now this is the way they listed them: the farm tools, the tables, the chairs, the lamps, the knives, the forks, the coffee pot, and at the end he listed the slaves: Linda and her 3 children, Mariah and her 3 children, as well as Dick, Adelia's great-great-grandfather, Anthony, Adam, George, Charles, all without surnames. Please note that all of the household goods were listed first, the human beings last, and those people who, because of their labor, enabled him to acquire the household goods that he listed first. No different from George Washington, who upon his death left his slaves to his wife Martha. Now where did I go in this first part? What I'm saying to you is because of privilege, from those times white went up swiftly. My father made $16,000 a year when he died. I retired making $75,000 a year. But I survived somehow through racism, through segregation, through discrimination, through denial, and everything. I was able to go on and get 2 masters and a PhD. Now, somebody said, well, everybody can do that. No. Because when you forever share upon, you begin to accept. And when you were talking about the prison, and he said, Wisconsin's like, what percent white? The prisoners, 4,000 and some prisoners, 300 and some whites. I don't have the, but the point that I heard him say was, Wisconsin has to put blacks in prison to keep Wisconsin white. And so they'll go out and spend all that money to keep them there. There aren't that many blacks in Wisconsin. And the prisons are 90% black. Then Hispanics and then whites. And I thought about that when you were talking about privilege. Just before I came here, this rich white lady, her husband was cheating on her, and she hired a detective, because that's what white folks do who have money. And she wanted to find out if he was cheating on her, so she had a camera following all his moves. But the camera turned against her because she caught her husband with this woman, and she took the car, she knocked him down and ran over him 3 times, and the camera caught it all. But that isn't the important part. That's not the important part. She was released for $30,000 on bail. And she ran over her man 3 times. And then said, I was mentally insane. And her daughter was with her when she killed us. $30,000 $1,000. She's sitting in her lovely home. Someone goes to ask questions, oh, I'm too sick to talk. My nephew, this is personal, he had been in trouble before, and I thought about it. 10 years ago, stealing from Dillard's. Now, if he'd had any sense, he'd know that's a wrong store to steal from, because Dillard's watches blacks like a hawk. They've been known to do that all the time. He goes, he has to serve stealing goods. I think he was in prison for like 2 years. 10 or 12 or 15 years passed. He's more sophisticated now. This is an intelligent, handsome young man who's done theater, been in the movies and shit and everything, you know, but that's one of his problems, but I don't need to discuss him. So he goes, and he's lifting computers from offices and selling them. And he gets caught. He goes to court, and the judge says, you are a predator, and I'm putting you in jail for 11 years. Well, fortunately, we got a good lawyer. They struck a plea bargain, and for stealing computers, he gets 3.5 years. She runs over her husband 3 times and kills him. She's out on a $30,000 bail, which she paid herself, and I bet you she doesn't serve, if she serves anything, it'll be a year or 2. And so my nephew, who's in the prison system now, a felon, if you will, he can get a judicial release, of which I supplied the money. But the same judge who put him in and said he's a predator will have to decide, with all the letters of reference and everything, whether she's going to let him out. Now tell me about privilege. Maybe money doesn't make privilege, maybe money doesn't establish, but if you have it, it's just like you say, that determines who's going to go and how long they're going to stay. And what is the United States busy doing? All over the country, they're building prisons to put black folks in. And I was surprised when you flat out said, and you're a prison officer, that you don't do rehabilitation. That's what prisons are supposed to do. And you said you all don't do that. You're not in that business.
That's how they used it.
I was shocked.
Let's be real, folks. They never did rehabilitation.
I know that.
It never was done. So let's be real. I don't know if people understand the breadth of this, but I ran a prison project for a year for the National Council of Churches. That's when I discovered who was in prison. If you go to the West Coast, it's Mexicans and people.
Yeah.
If you go to another coast, it's people of color all over.
Yes.
I was just going to say, in Denver, last election, we significantly defeated a referendum to build another prison or city jail and everything. And it was a real grassroots effort in the Latino community where the prison was going to be built. And I think that's a rare exception. But the mayor, who's black, and all of his administration, police department were all advocating for the prison. Spent buku bucks, but it was a real grassroots movement that defeated it.
That's right. And then there was the famous Thomas Jefferson, who spoke and wrote in a negative and hostile manner about Negroes. He had seduced Sally Hemings when she was 14 and had several children with her, even though he had a wife. Today he would have been incarcerated for rape and put in prison, but he is immortalized in a memorial in Washington, D.C., along with Washington, Lincoln, and others. Ensconced in those sacred grounds, highlighted by the Capitol itself that was constructed of slave labor. You can walk all over these grounds and not see a single monument dedicated to those men and women who built that place. They were left out of history, and their progeny were taught that those who had placed and held them in slavery were their saviors and their heroes. It defies understanding. Last spring, that was 2 springs ago, I stood on the hills in Harper's Ferry. We had the retreat. Yes, beautiful place. At the juncture of the mighty rivers, the Shenandoah, the Susquehanna, and the Potomac, where John Brown and his small band of committed followers attempted to initiate the grand revolt against the evilness of the slave system. To me, it is a spiritual place, and I experienced a similar feeling of spiritual loss that I have felt in Senegal and Ghana. That same feeling, that spiritual loss. And I wept for the loss of those men and men like them who had struck out for liberation. Men like Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey. And even today I feel a loss because there are no memorials for John Brown, Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner. And I recall my trip to the courthouse in Charlestown where John Brown was tried and found guilty. And I drove slowly up the street to a vacant lot where John Brown was hanged for treason in December of 1859. And I concluded some time ago that it was a power trip legitimized by the political structure. There was no concern for slaves and their struggle for survival in the United States. Brown was a menace. He had to go. His murder was a political crime. However, that did not solve the problem. Shortly thereafter, the Civil War began and the young nation was bathed in blood, and another example of truth crushed to the earth was rising again. 2 years ago, I looked in the faces of the mixed-race people, African and Portuguese, in Salvador de Bahia. I also saw some of the historical testaments to slavery while there. It seemed that I had seen the people and the situation before. Then I remembered that these people were the same African and Portuguese people that I saw in Cape Verde, off the coast of Africa, and the same people who lived in New Bedford, Massachusetts by the thousands, who are also not the top of the social structure of New Bedford. That's reserved for the English and the French. And I noted that in Bahia, the blacker you are, the lower you tend to be on the economic and social ladder. And I was compelled to wonder how long the residual effects of slavery will endure in this country and throughout the world. I especially wonder when the Day of Atonement will come. I raised that question because I said I didn't want anyone to say, I'm sorry to you, it was, all bad. That I want a Day of Atonement, a national Day of Atonement, when the stock market closes, when everything closes, and there's services and apologies and asking forgiveness toward the black people who have been maligned and trashed throughout history. There has to be a Day of Atonement before we can build the kind of things that we're trying to build. White people owe black people an apology. That's just the first step. I'm talking about reparations. Reparations means what? To repair. And now we come to the groundswell efforts to begin to address all the years of injustices and hurts that have caused an entire group of people to suffer indignities for some 246 years. Today, the conversation and strategies have shifted to reparations and accountability.